The year was 2225. Earth, a planet that had once been divided by petty borders and conflicts, had finally come together under one united banner, the Global Alliance. Humanity had made great strides in technology, exploration, and diplomacy, but the stars beyond their world were still an unknown mystery. Little did they know, that mystery was about to knock on their door. On a calm evening, in the sprawling halls of the United Nations headquarters, representatives from every nation sat in tense silence. The Earth had received a message, an unexpected and startling message. A great power, a galactic empire known as the Imperium, had sent a communication, one that would change the course of human history. The holographic display in the center of the room flickered to life, showing a regal figure, his face stern and cold. He wore a uniform that seemed to shimmer with otherworldly technology. The figure was a representative of the Galactic Empire, and he spoke in a voice that carried authority across the room. People of Earth, you have been observed. Your advancements have caught the attention of the Galactic Empire. We are here to make a simple request. The Empire requires unrestricted passage through your solar system for our military fleets. Refuse and consequences will follow. A hush fell over the room as the leaders of Earth exchanged uneasy glances. The message was clear, and the tone left no room for negotiation. The representative, confident and unwavering, continued. Understand this. The Imperium has the power to crush any resistance. Your technology, though impressive, is no match for the might of our fleet. We offer you a choice. Grant us passage, and you will remain in our good graces. Refuse, and you will face the wrath of a force beyond your comprehension. The hologram faded, leaving the room in complete silence. The message lingered in the minds of every person present. The Earth had been given an ultimatum: comply or face annihilation. It was a chilling proposition. For many, the idea of standing against such a powerful force seemed impossible. After all, who were they to challenge an empire that spanned across the stars? But there was something else in the room that night, something more powerful than fear. It was a sense of unity, something that had been built over centuries of struggle and triumph. The nations of Earth, once divided by their differences, now stood together, bound by a common will to protect their home. The leaders of Earth exchanged looks that said it all. They would not bow to this threat. The president of the Global Alliance, a calm and resolute leader named Maria Kent, stood from her seat. Her voice, steady and strong, echoed throughout the room. We will not surrender our planet to anyone, let alone an empire that sees us as insignificant. Earth will decide its own fate. No passage will be granted to the Galactic Empire. The room erupted into a chorus of agreement. The decision was made. Earth would stand its ground. The representatives knew the road ahead would be dangerous, but they also knew they could not allow their world to be dictated by an outside force. News of the decision spread quickly, not just across Earth, but to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The Galactic Empire had expected fear, submission, and compliance. What they received instead was defiance, a word they hadn't heard in centuries. They had underestimated humanity, assuming that their technology and power would force a quick surrender. They hadn't counted on humanity's will to fight for their freedom. As the Empire's representative returned to his fleet, the commanders were eager to strike. They could not understand why Earth had rejected them. They were the dominant power in the galaxy. They had conquered countless worlds without resistance. Why should Earth be any different? On Earth, however, there was no fear, only preparation. Scientists, military strategists, engineers, and civilians began to come together. The Global Alliance knew that standing against the Empire would take more than just courage. It would require every ounce of humanity's creativity, ingenuity, and unity. Earth may not have the firepower of the Empire, but it had something far more powerful: the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to fight for their survival. The first wave of Empire ships began to enter the solar system, their dark shapes looming in the distance. They were powerful, intimidating, and certain of their victory. But what the Empire didn't know was that Earth had already started planning. A new era had begun, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy just how far they would go to protect their world. In the quiet of the night, as Earth's defense systems powered up for the first time, a single message was broadcast across the stars. No passage will be granted. This was only the beginning. The Galactic Empire's fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system with a terrifying show of power. Hundreds of massive warships, their hulls gleaming with strange alien technology, stretched across the dark void like an unstoppable wave. Each ship was a marvel of engineering, designed for dominance, and their weapons were unmatched. As they neared Earth, the very sight of them cast a shadow of uncertainty over the planet. The Empire's fleet commander, Admiral Zoreth, stood confidently on the bridge of the flagship, looking out at the blue planet below. "It's a beautiful world," he muttered, his voice betraying no emotion. "But it will soon be ours." Zoreth was a veteran of countless conquests, and to him, Earth was just another world to be claimed. His fleet, unrivaled in strength, had crushed every resistance they had encountered. He expected Earth to fold easily, just as other civilizations had. After all, how could a relatively primitive planet stand against the might of the Imperium? His mind was already set on the swift occupation of Earth, knowing the Empire would provide whatever resources they needed. Back on Earth, however, the mood was very different. Earth's leaders had refused to back down, and humanity had begun preparing for the fight of their lives. While the Empire expected submission, the people of Earth were doing what they did best, coming together to defend their home. The Global Alliance Council convened in secret to finalize their plans, and an atmosphere of quiet determination filled the room. Among the leaders was Dr. Elena Voss, a renowned scientist who had been instrumental in Earth's technological advancements. Along with her team of engineers and military strategists, she had been working on something that could turn the tide in humanity's favor. They had a secret weapon, a series of defensive satellites equipped with advanced EMP technology. These satellites were not designed for destruction, but for disruption, capable of disabling enemy ships without firing a single shot. The idea was simple but powerful. The Empire's advanced ships relied heavily on their electronic systems. If those systems could be disabled, the Empire's superiority would be neutralized. As the fleet approached, Earth's military forces were on high alert. The satellite network was activated, and the first of the Empire's ships entered the solar system. They didn't expect any interference. After all, they were the Empire. But suddenly, the lead scout ship began to flicker. Its systems went haywire, and its powerful sensors turned blind. Then, one by one, more ships began to experience similar issues. The fleet commander's confident expression faltered as his bridge crew scrambled to regain control. "What's happening?" Zoreth demanded, his voice cold and sharp. "What is causing these malfunctions?" The crew struggled to answer. "Admiral, it appears we're being attacked by some form of electronic warfare," the technician replied, his voice filled with confusion. "Our systems are being disabled. We can't track our own ships." Back on Earth, Dr. Voss watched the live feed from the satellite control center with bated breath. Her pulse quickened as the results were more than promising. The disruptors were working perfectly. The Empire's ships were caught off guard, and their once flawless technology was rendered useless. It wasn't just a small glitch. It was a full-blown breakdown. The Empire's ships had no idea what was happening, and they couldn't fix it fast enough. Admiral Zoreth clenched his fists, his mind racing. This was unexpected. He had heard rumors about Earth's ingenuity, but he hadn't believed them. Now, the planet was proving to be more than just a nuisance. It was a real threat. He gave the order to engage the remaining ships in the fleet. "Deploy backup systems," he commanded, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. "We need to break through, no matter what." But it was already too late. The damage was done. Without their advanced systems, the Empire's fleet was vulnerable. They couldn't track the enemy, couldn't communicate, and couldn't retaliate effectively. The once mighty warships were now helpless targets, floating in space with no way of defending themselves. At this moment, the people of Earth began to understand the scale of their potential. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to protect something far more valuable: their home, their future, and their right to decide their own destiny. The resistance wasn't just about military power. It was about human resourcefulness, courage, and the will to defend the planet. The Empire wasn't prepared for this kind of resistance. Zorath, still furious but now facing an unexpected challenge, issued another order. "Retreat," he shouted. "Regroup and recalibrate. This is not over." But Earth was not about to give up. The defensive satellites continued to disrupt the Empire's ships, and humanity's ingenuity turned the tide in their favor. Even as the Empire regrouped and tried to adjust, Earth's scientists and military personnel were already planning the next step. They knew that they had made their first move, and it was a victory. The fight was far from over, but for the first time, the Empire had learned a valuable lesson. Humanity wasn't to be underestimated. Earth would not kneel before any empire. The message was clear, and it was sent across the stars. Earth would stand its ground. Admiral Zorath paced angrily across the bridge of his flagship. His fleet had been humiliated, and Earth's unexpected defense had shaken the very foundation of the Empire's pride. The malfunction of their ships was unlike anything they had ever encountered. In all their conquests, no enemy had been able to stand against them for long, let alone disrupt their advanced systems. Now, Earth had not only resisted but had made it clear they would not bow to the Empire. Zorath clenched his fists, his mind working to regain control of the situation. He had spent his entire life leading the Empire's military forces, and this setback could not go unanswered. He needed to show his superiors that Earth's resistance was nothing but a minor obstacle. It was time for the Empire to strike back. "Prepare the fleet for a second assault," Zorath ordered, his voice cold and commanding. "This time, we won't rely on technology alone. We will invade their planet directly. It's time to remind them who they're dealing with." Back on Earth, the news of the Empire's retreat had been met with a sense of triumph. Humanity had successfully defended their home for the moment, but the leaders knew that this victory was temporary. The Galactic Empire was not a force to be taken lightly, and if they returned with full force, Earth would need to be ready. Dr. Elena Voss and her team were already deep in their work, collaborating with the world's best military minds and engineers to reinforce Earth's defenses. The previous success with the electronic disruptors was only the beginning. The Empire's retreat had given Earth a glimmer of hope, but they knew it wasn't enough to win the war. As the Global Alliance Council convened again, President Maria Kent stood before the world's leaders, a determined look in her eyes. "We've made progress, but we must stay vigilant. We've shown the Empire that we're not afraid, but now we need to prepare for the next stage. We can't afford to be caught off guard again." Her words were met with firm nods of agreement. Everyone understood that the coming days would be crucial in deciding the fate of Earth. But there was something else they all felt, a sense of unity, the same unity that had brought them together in the first place. It was a reminder that humanity was stronger when they worked together, and this challenge would be no different. Meanwhile, Zorath's fleet had recovered. The Empire's engineers had managed to bypass the disruptors, and their ships were now fully operational. The Empire's leadership had authorized a new strategy, an invasion, not from space, but from the ground. They would send elite ground forces, specially trained for rapid and overwhelming assaults, to invade Earth directly. The idea was simple: overwhelm humanity with sheer numbers and force, and make Earth surrender before it could fully mobilize its defenses. The fleet assembled once again, and this time, Earth was ready. Across the planet, armies were in motion, prepared to defend their world from the incoming invasion. Every country on Earth had pledged their forces to protect their home, from the smallest nation to the largest. The human spirit, fueled by determination and unity, was stronger than any alien empire could have imagined. As the Empire's troops descended onto Earth's surface, they were met with an unexpected challenge. The people of Earth, though outnumbered and outgunned, were resourceful. The defensive satellites that had previously crippled the Empire's fleet now formed a network of advanced weapons platforms that were able to target and disable the enemy's landing ships before they even touched the ground. The invaders, caught off guard by the speed of the human response, were forced to regroup. But even then, Zoreth's forces were formidable, and they managed to establish footholds in key locations. However, the more they pushed forward, the more they realized that Earth was not a typical world to conquer. The terrain itself seemed to work against them. Cities that were once thought to be easy targets became strongholds, with humans using their knowledge of the environment to create traps and defensive positions. The Empire's soldiers, though well-trained, were not prepared for the guerrilla tactics that Earth's defenders employed. Every corner of the planet had become a battlefield, and humanity fought with everything they had. Dr. Voss's team had been working tirelessly behind the scenes too. They had developed new weapons and strategies to use against the Empire's forces. One of their most effective creations was a specialized EMP device designed for ground use, capable of disabling enemy equipment within a wide radius. When the first of these devices was deployed in a battle zone, it caused chaos among the invading forces. Tanks and armored vehicles shut down, and communication lines went dead. The Empire's elite soldiers, though skilled, were no match for the disarray caused by Earth's new weapons. Back in the heart of the conflict, President Kent addressed the people of Earth through a live broadcast. Her face appeared on screens across the world, a symbol of hope and strength. "We are fighting not just for our survival, but for our future. We will not let anyone take away our right to live freely on our planet. This is our home, and we will defend it." Her words resonated with every person who heard them, and the resolve of Earth's defenders grew stronger. The fight for Earth was no longer just about survival. It had become a battle for the very soul of humanity. Every man, woman, and child, whether on the front lines or supporting from behind, was part of the defense. Admiral Zoreth, watching the chaos unfold from his flagship, couldn't believe what he was seeing. The Empire had underestimated Earth, and now it was paying the price. What had seemed like an easy conquest was turning into a nightmare. Yet he refused to give up. Earth had shown them their strength, but the Empire would show them its power. The war was far from over, and Zoreth was determined to finish what he had started. As the first wave of the Empire's forces dug in on Earth's surface, it became clear this was no longer a fight for survival. This was a war for the future of both civilizations, and the outcome was uncertain. The battle for Earth had entered a new phase. The Galactic Empire's invasion forces, despite their superior technology and experience, found themselves in a conflict unlike any they had faced before. Earth's terrain, its people, and their creativity were proving to be a formidable challenge. Admiral Zoreth's forces had established several strongholds on Earth, but they were far from secure. Each day, humanity seemed to find new ways to resist, making the Empire's occupation of the planet increasingly difficult. Zoreth, still determined to subdue the human race, knew that time was not on his side. The longer the resistance lasted, the harder it would be to maintain control. He needed to end this quickly, before Earth's defenses could become too entrenched. Zoreth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the latest reports from the ground battles. His soldiers had made progress, but they were being slowly pushed back, especially in the more heavily defended cities. The humans' use of guerrilla tactics and their innovative weaponry were disrupting the Empire's strategy at every turn. It was a war of attrition, and Earth was holding its ground. "We need more firepower," Zoreth muttered to his officers. "Prepare the orbital bombardment units. We'll crush them from above." Back on Earth, President Maria Kent knew that this war was reaching its tipping point. The Galactic Empire had proven to be relentless, and while humanity had been able to slow them down, the Empire's overwhelming power loomed over them. Yet, despite the growing danger, Kent remained resolute. She addressed the people of Earth, urging them to stay strong. "This is it," she said, her voice steady but filled with determination. "The Empire is going to strike harder than ever, but we will not back down. We will fight for our homes, for our families, and for the future of our children. We have already proven that we can stand up to them. Now, we must make our stand." Her speech was broadcast worldwide, reaching every corner of the earth. People from all walks of life responded to her call. Soldiers, civilians, scientists, and engineers alike put aside their differences and focused on a singular goal: protecting their world. The resistance had grown stronger with each passing day, and humanity's unity had become its greatest weapon. Dr. Elena Voss and her team were at the forefront of the effort to develop new technologies to help defend Earth. One of their latest creations was a massive shield generator, capable of creating a protective barrier around the most critical areas of the planet. The generator would block incoming projectiles and provide a temporary safeguard against the Empire's bombardment. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it was the best Earth had at the moment. The shield generator was set up in key locations, including military bases and major cities. As the Empire prepared to launch its orbital bombardment, Earth's defenses were put to the test. Zorath had ordered his ships to fire, confident that the human shield would be no match for the Empire's advanced weaponry. But as the first barrage of energy beams descended toward the planet, the shield activated, creating a glowing dome of light that absorbed the blasts. The Empire's powerful weapons crashed into the barrier, but the shield held firm, protecting the cities below. Zorath watched in disbelief as his weapons failed to break through. His command ship sensors confirmed that the shield was functioning perfectly. He had underestimated humanity's ability to innovate, and now the Empire's most powerful weapons were useless. This is impossible," Zorath shouted, his frustration mounting. "Send in the ground forces. We need to breach those shields." As the Empire's ground forces advanced, humanity's defenses were put to the test once again. Soldiers stationed at the shield generators worked tirelessly to maintain the barrier, ensuring that the cities would remain protected. The battle was fierce, but the human resolve was even fiercer. They fought with everything they had, no longer just as individual nations, but as one united force. In one of the most heavily defended cities, a group of resistance fighters, led by Captain Thomas Hayes, launched a daring attack against the Empire's ground forces. Using the cover of night and their knowledge of the terrain, they sabotaged key supply lines and communication networks. Their actions created confusion among the invaders, and for a brief moment, the Empire's control over their forces faltered. "We can't let them regroup," Captain Hayes said, his voice firm. "We push forward now. For Earth." His team moved swiftly through the streets, taking out enemy patrols and ensuring that no reinforcements could reach the front lines. The Empire's soldiers, though experienced, struggled to adapt to the humans' unpredictable tactics. The advantage had shifted. Back in space, Zorath's frustration turned to anger. He had expected to crush the humans with one swift blow, but now, the situation was slipping out of his control. The shield had become a symbol of Earth's defiance. He knew that if he didn't act soon, the tide of the war could change in humanity's favor. His decision was final. "Prepare the fleet for another assault. If we can't break their defenses, we'll find a way to force their surrender. Earth's resources are too valuable to abandon." The war, now entering its most critical phase, was far from over. The Empire was determined to finish what it had started, and Earth's defenders were just as determined to protect their home. With each new challenge, humanity was proving that they would not yield, no matter the cost. The battle for Earth had become a fight for survival, a fight that neither side could afford to lose. As the conflict raged on, one thing was clear: the final outcome of this war would determine the future of both Earth and the Galactic Empire. As the days passed, the war between Earth and the Galactic Empire escalated to unimaginable levels. Zorath's forces, still pushing forward with overwhelming strength, found themselves fighting against an enemy that refused to break. The shield generators had been a game changer, and humanity's resourcefulness was showing no signs of slowing down. Earth's defenders, from soldiers to civilians, were rising to the occasion, their hearts set on protecting their planet. Despite his initial disbelief, Admiral Zorath had adapted to the situation. His fleet had suffered heavy losses, and the ground invasion had been far more challenging than expected. But his resolve remained unshaken. He had one final strategy: to break Earth's spirit. If he could capture or destroy their capital, President Kent, and the heart of the resistance, perhaps the human will to fight would finally crumble. Zorath ordered his forces to concentrate their efforts on the heart of humanity's resistance. The full force of his army would descend on Earth's most strategic city, New York, where President Kent and her government had set up their command center. The Empire's bombardment was relentless, with warships raining fire from above, targeting military bases and key infrastructure. Zorath believed that if he could cripple Earth's leadership, the remaining defenders would have no choice but to surrender. On the ground, Earth's military leaders had prepared for the worst. President Kent knew that New York was the target, and the weight of the decision rested heavily on her shoulders. She had watched her people fight with extraordinary courage, but now they faced the real possibility of losing everything. The odds were stacked against them, and yet she refused to give up. "We fight together, or we fall apart," President Kent said during a meeting with her top advisors. "If we give up now, everything we've worked for will be lost. We have one final chance to protect our home, and we will take it." Her words resonated deeply within every soldier and leader in the room. They knew what they were up against, but the strength of their unity was unmatched. Even as the Empire's forces drew closer, humanity had one powerful weapon they could rely on: their determination. They would never bow to an invading force. In the chaos of battle, one unexpected event turned the tide in humanity's favor. As Zorath's ground forces closed in on New York, a group of Earth's engineers, led by Dr. Elena Voss, made a groundbreaking discovery. While studying the Empire's technology, they found a weakness in the Empire's communication network, one that could disable their command centers across the galaxy. It was a risk, but if it succeeded, it could cause massive disruption in the Empire's operations. Dr. Voss and her team immediately set to work, hacking into the Empire's secure systems from a hidden base deep underground. The risk of detection was high, but the stakes were even higher. If they could break through the Empire's encryption, it would buy Earth the time it desperately needed. Back on the battlefield, Captain Thomas Hayes and his resistance fighters had been fighting tooth and nail to hold the line in New York. The Empire's forces were closing in, and the humans' defenses were beginning to falter under the relentless pressure. But the spirit of the resistance had not wavered. Captain Hayes led his team in a desperate charge, targeting the Empire's soldiers with every ounce of strength they had left. They knew this was their last chance to make a stand. The battle raged on as the sun began to set over the city. Zorath's forces were relentless, and the fighting seemed endless. But as the clock ticked down, a signal finally came through from Dr. Voss's team. They had succeeded. The Empire's communication network had been compromised. Their military commands were now in disarray, and Zorath's forces were left scrambling to adjust. The disruption caused chaos among the Empire's troops. Without the ability to coordinate, their attacks grew sloppy and their tactics faltered. In the chaos, Earth's defenders seized the opportunity to push back. With their leadership and communication systems in disarray, the Empire's forces struggled to regain control. The human resistance, inspired by the sudden shift, fought harder than ever. Zorath, still on his flagship, received the news of the disruption with fury. His entire strategy had been built on precise coordination, and now it was unraveling before him. His forces were in disarray, and the human resistance had become more than he had ever expected. They were no longer simply defending their planet. They were fighting to win. Zorath's anger boiled over. "We will not lose to these primitive creatures," he hissed, slamming his fist onto the control panel. "Send in the final wave of reinforcements." We will crush them. But despite his orders, the damage had been done. The disruption had given Earth's forces a critical advantage. Captain Hayes, leading his troops in a final push, managed to breach one of the Empire's command centers in New York. They planted explosives that crippled the Empire's local infrastructure, throwing their operations into further chaos. As news of this victory spread, the morale of Earth's defenders soared. They could see the end of the conflict in sight. The tide had finally turned. Zorath's forces, disorganized and confused, were losing ground. The human resistance, fueled by their unbreakable spirit, had taken the fight to the heart of the Empire's operations. The final battle was not yet over, but for the first time since the war began, Earth's victory seemed within reach. The Empire's grip on Earth was slipping. The final stand for Earth's freedom had begun, and humanity had proven that no force in the galaxy could crush their spirit. The war had reached its climax. The forces of the Galactic Empire, once so confident in their superiority, were now scattered and in disarray. Earth's defenders, through sheer determination and innovation, had turned the tide. The once unstoppable empire had found itself on the brink of defeat. The final push to reclaim Earth had begun. Admiral Zorath, his flagship battered and damaged by the unexpected turn of events, stood before his command center. His face was a mixture of anger and disbelief. Earth's resistance had not only fought back, they had outsmarted the Empire at every turn. The disruption of their communication networks had crippled his forces, and the relentless push of humanity's fighters had proven to be more than his military could handle. The invincible Galactic Empire was no longer invincible. He clenched his fists in frustration. "This cannot be the end," he muttered to himself. "We are the Galactic Empire. We conquer worlds. We rule the stars. We will not lose to these primitives." But even as he spoke, his fleet was in retreat. The human resistance had broken through key defenses, and Earth's cities were no longer under the Empire's control. New York, once on the verge of destruction, stood strong, and with it, the symbol of Earth's defiance. Humanity had shown that no force, no matter how powerful, could subdue them. The heart of the resistance had won. As Earth's soldiers pushed forward, President Kent addressed the world once more. Her voice, strong and filled with pride, echoed through the broadcast systems, reaching every corner of the planet. "We have done it," she declared. "We stood together, united as one. Against the might of the Galactic Empire, we fought for our freedom, for our future, and for our families. Today, we prove that no force is greater than the will of humanity." Her words sparked cheers and celebrations across the globe. People, exhausted from years of war, finally allowed themselves to hope. The war was not yet completely over, but they had come this far. The Empire's hold on Earth had been shattered, and humanity's victory seemed inevitable. Back on the battlefield, Captain Thomas Hayes led his final charge against the remaining pockets of the Empire's forces. The streets of New York were still filled with smoke and the remnants of battle, but the humans were pressing on, determined to end this war once and for all. Every soldier, every resistance fighter, fought with a fierce sense of purpose. The Empire had taken so much from them, but they were not about to let it take their planet. As Hayes and his team moved through the city, they encountered the last of Zorath's ground forces. The Empire's soldiers, once proud and formidable, now looked weary and defeated. Their weapons were no longer as effective, their movements slower. The once feared invaders now seemed like shadows of their former selves. It was clear that the heart of the Empire was breaking. With each victory, Earth's forces pushed the Empire further back. The final battle took place near the heart of New York, where Zorath's command center once stood. The once mighty flagship of the Empire, now battered and broken, hovered overhead. The remnants of Zorath's fleet began to retreat into the depths of space, unable to continue their assault. The final blow to the Empire had been struck. In the midst of the chaos, Dr. Elena Voss and her team made their final contribution. They had successfully reverse-engineered much of the Empire's advanced technology, using it to develop weapons that could disrupt the remaining invaders. A final device was activated, sending out a pulse that knocked out the remaining Empire ships in Earth's atmosphere. Zoreth's fleet was now completely immobilized. It was over. The Galactic Empire, once feared across the galaxy, had been defeated by the ingenuity, determination, and unity of the human race. Earth was free. As Zoreth's last remaining forces retreated into the vastness of space, President Kent addressed the world once more, her voice filled with pride and triumph. "We have faced the impossible," she said, "and we have won. Today, we stand as proof that no matter the odds, no matter how strong the enemy, humanity will always rise. We will rebuild, we will grow stronger, and we will ensure that no one ever dares to threaten our home again." The celebrations that followed were unlike anything the world had ever seen. People flooded the streets, embracing each other, knowing that their survival and their victory had come at a great cost. But it was worth it. They had not only saved their planet, but had also shown the universe that humanity could never be underestimated. As the days turned into weeks and months, Earth began to heal. Cities that had been torn apart by war were rebuilt, families reunited, and the planet began to recover. The victory over the Galactic Empire would be remembered for generations. Earth had fought back, and the message sent across the galaxy was clear. Humanity would never bow to any invader. They would protect their home, their way of life, and their future. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter that night, as if even the universe itself recognized the strength of the human spirit. Earth was free, and the galaxy would never forget the day humanity stood up to the greatest force in the universe and won.